Hey, everybody, it's your old pal Ray. So I'm here at the radio station. I just finished an interview. It's like 9 o'clock at night. My guest was from the West Coast. This was the best time for him to call in. Sometimes I'll do this. I'll tape an interview and then play it back. Normally, I'd play it back on the morning show, but it's such a lengthy interview that I decided I'll just throw it up on demand. You guys can enjoy it in its entirety at your leisure. So I just watched a movie on Shudder, and this movie came out at Sundance with rave reviews and then ended up on Shudder. Shudder picked it up. It's called Scare Me. It's written, directed, and produced by Josh Ruben, who happens to star in it as well, opposite Aya Cash from season 2 of The Boys and a show on FX or FXX called You're the Worst. Up-and-coming actress. She's fantastic. So I enjoyed the movie so much that I tracked Josh down and asked if he would talk to me about it, and he did. Now, I go right into the conversation without even setting this up. So let me tell you a little bit about the movie. Josh and Aya play Fred and Fanny, two writers that meet during a weekend retreat. They end up in a cabin in the woods during a blackout, bored as heck, so they decide to tell each other scary stories. And that's pretty much all you need to know about the movie. And we'll jump right into the conversation with Josh Ruben. Again, check it out. It's called Scare Me. It's on the Shudder network. Hopefully it goes a little wider soon. Shudder is a pay service. But if you can rent it or if you have a Shudder account, please check out this movie. It's so much fun. So here's my conversation with Josh Ruben. So excited about the new movie. And, you know, I'm much like everyone else. I have every streaming service. I've got, Netflix and Hulu, and I had Shudder on my Amazon Prime, and I go there often to see if there's something new. I like watching the original stuff, and I came across this movie, Scare Me, and first of all, passed by it just a couple times. I'm like, okay, I'll get to that eventually. Man, I wish I had watched it and during its premiere. I would have felt like I was ahead of everyone else, but I loved this movie, Josh, which you wrote, directed, starred in, and produced, I'm sure. What else did you do with it? Did you work in catering as well?
I worked in catering.
Yeah.
I certainly walked in on our first day of shooting. Was the coldest day in 8 years in that part of the Hudson Valley. So I also was the toilet flusher, which with pipes had frozen. So
Sure.
Pouring Evian bottles into toilet to make sure that it could flush successfully in that weather. No, we did it all. That's the nature of the scrappy movie. You know, we made kind of a Duplassian little different sort of genre film, and I'm so glad it's hidden.
Well, a couple things there to unpack. You mentioned that this is kind of multi-genre. There's a lot going on here. For a network like Shudder, you know, you're thinking horror movie, which I assumed, and then the title Scare Me, and then I read the synopsis, and it sounded intriguing, and then I found myself laughing. And then I found myself on the edge of my seat. And then I found myself wondering what's happening next. And then it builds up. And then it comes down to a nice even plane. And then it goes this way and that way. If you weren't to call this, like, let's say this, if it wasn't on Shudder, how would you describe this movie and where would it be that it would make sense? Shudder, it's saying, check it out. It's scary enough and it's a horror movie. We're going to call it that. But where else would you put it? And what else would you say about this movie?
I don't know. I mean, you know, the dream is always somewhere that takes chances, like A24, but A24 might be the kind of, they might be too cool. They're like extremely boutique-y, and we're a little rough around the edges. I mean, we're a true first-time filmmaker kind of a movie. I mean, my whole crew, no one really worked on features before. I've been in the directing game for a while, but it certainly was it wasn't my first rodeo, but definitely my first movie. And, you know, we definitely, this is a bootstrap effort. So my pact with my cinematographer was, let's just make a thing, even if it costs, $500 and I'm holding the boom as I'm acting. And let's cross it off the bucket list to make a thing. And not only did we make a thing, but we exceeded the result far exceeded our expectations to be acquired by Shudder, let alone to be accepted to Sundance, and let alone for, Shudder's Shudder's followers to be checking it out and for folks to be singing its praises, nationally and I guess internationally with some of the with our foreign reach and the like. It's incredible. It's incredible. And then too with Aya Cash and with the confluence of events around The Boys.
Oh, right.
It's nuts.
I mean, that it doesn't hurt that season 2 came out right around the same time of The Boys, and she is huge right now. Now, you worked with her on You're the Worst, correct?
We did totally coincidentally.
Oh, yeah?
We did one episode together, but I'd known her for many years, and I wonder if she just threw me a bone and was like, just hire my friend. I mean, I honestly came in for 2 scenes, but she was so wonderful and kind, and I'd known of her through her husband for many years. We shared a voiceover agent back in the day in New York, and she was always lovely to me, and she just took a chance on it. She took a chance on me. She finished the show. She was looking for a challenge, but of course her joke was, Josh, I meant challenge, like doing a period piece, not, Crypt Keeper impressions and barking like a dog. But I'm so glad that she did.
Well, let's go back. I feel like I got ahead of myself here. I assume everybody knows about this movie now. But the basic story is that you and Aya play writers. You don't know each other, but you end up in a cabin deep in the woods during a blackout together, and you decide to tell each other scary stories. Your character is more of the weak writer, and then she has a best-selling book, and she wrote a horror book, and I don't know, was there a movie? I can't remember if there was a movie based on that book in the movie.
Oh, there probably
okay.
The traction that Fred could only ever dream of. Yeah.
Right. So she pushes you to be a better writer, but at the same time, you still resent her, and then things just get out of hand. But do they get out of hand? That's my big question with this movie, and I'm sure anybody that sees it is going to draw their own conclusions. But I did not know where to take this movie at the end, in my mind. I went so many different places, but I love that.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of folks. I think I've sort of pissed off the horror community. And, hey, how come no one got dismembered, and how come I'm not, peeing my pants? And then other folks are kind of like, like you're saying, very, very generously, I can't believe I didn't know where it was going, and that I found myself laughing.
Yeah.
And the wonderful thing is too for the folks that Venn diagram of folks who are like, but I laughed, but I also was kind of on the edge of my seat, and I'm going after a very specific type of person. I guess people, these narcissists, but beyond that, a white 30-something male American man who can't self-soothe, who can't really deal with the success of another woman, who can't deal with the, being in the shadow of a woman's greatness, and that's a very, very specific gender dynamic that I've noticed throughout the years. Nuggets in myself, certainly behaviors in other men, and also intragender, behaviors as well, just kind of that competitive angle. And I think in retrospect, I certainly look back and I'm like, oh man, I could have had some Cthulhu pop out of a closet, but we couldn't afford it, And so the real monster, the real horror movie, sort of accelerates or presents itself in the at the end of Act 3, because it's there's no horror worse than sort of being cornered by someone who you don't know what they're going to do at the end of the night.
And we still don't know. I mean, we don't know if Fred was the crazy one or Fanny. I don't want to give too much away, but we don't know who's doing what at any given time. I mean, for a while, I thought maybe Chris Redd from SNL was going to be the crazy guy. And you know what? For people who haven't seen this, maybe he was. I don't want to spoil anything. But I thoroughly enjoyed it as a horror comedy. I guess I would put it in that category. And we all know the story of Jaws. I mean, the shark was going to be the big thing. And then since it broke down so much and they couldn't really put it in the movie as much as they wanted, the movie became phenomenal because it's what you don't know, what you don't see is what scares you the most.
Right. Well, I mean, any remote comparison to my favorite film, which I had to mention and
you did.
Had to pay homage to, is wonderful.
That's my favorite. It's got to be my favorite movie, hands down, as well.
Yeah, number one.
But you reference The Shining, Tales from the Crypt. You do a great Crypt Keeper and a great Troll, by the way. And I said that on Twitter. I fell for you when you started doing the Crypt Keeper and the Troll, which is very similar. But I enjoyed your Troll immensely. And that's where I'm looking at you. First of all, you're a good-looking guy. And I didn't know how to read you at first. And when you started getting goofy, I'm like, oh, I like this guy. And you did. You truly got goofy. And then I learned how much of a comedic presence you are in so many different circles. I mean, you're part of the Woodstock Comedy Festival. You were part of College Humor. So your videos go back, what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
And then the impressions that you do. Now, you're not doing, you do De Niro, right? You do, but you're not doing all the things that you would think, what's his name, Rich Little would be doing. I mean, you're doing Ruffalo, you're doing Aaron Paul, first of all, you're doing Billy Crudup, and I think the best part of that impression is the hair.
Yeah, I agree. The hair and the cheekbones, and it's like, must not have been drinking that week. For everything else, ow. I think
I could have turned the volume down.
Yeah, well, I think it's those nuances and those specifics that make somebody, and not pulling a Frank Caliendo for De Niro's, but making it all about the sinuses, and the way he breathes. That's always fascinated me, and it's always made kids laugh at the lunch table when I was a kid. And this is is going to give you, and certainly was going to give me, a better shot than myself. I've auditioned for many years. I've done a bunch of stuff. College Humor, for all intents and purposes, my biggest break. I've auditioned for Saturday Night Live. I've auditioned for 30 Rock. I've been in the game for a while, and this is my biggest role because I had to put my foot down, forge my own path, and it's what I tell a lot of young filmmakers is, how did you do it? Well, you just pick up a camera. It starts with building your network out and getting buddies, who you trust and trust you, and raise each other up. But I forged, to use Amy Nicholson's from Variety's terminology, he's forged himself an actor's showcase, and I really did write to my strengths. I knew that I could squat down like a troll and do a Crypt Keeper impression, and I wanted to rope in a very talented actress who wouldn't portray, a character and, exist in some sexualized role, but would get to do the same stuff, that she wouldn't normally get to do. And then, we kind of, here we are.
That's a good point. I mean, Aya is very sexy, but you did not sexualize her in that movie, really.
Yeah, it's not what it's about. It's not what it's about. And when there could have been a moment, things get flaccid because Harlow comes in and, he's the buzzkill for Fred. And that helps compound his sort of breakdown, the third wheeling and lack of insulation he has that gets us to where we get at the end of the movie.
And it was kind of a nice break, too, within the movie where it just kind of went off the rails for 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, however long Chris Redd was in there, because he's such a presence. He was so much fun.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And the thing about him and Aya both that I don't have nearly enough experience in. I mean, it's how I started, but they started, they're in the live performers world.
Right.
That's why they were so wonderful to work with. They're collaborative, but also how and why they're so willing to take big swings. They're willing to take risks. They're willing to play ugly and make an ass of themselves. And, if they were cosmopolitan as a duo, I don't think we would have ended up with the movie we did. They make it. It's an actor's movie, and hopefully someday it'll be adapted for the stage. It's so clearly, could be a live show.
Let's go back a little bit. You're talking about just making the movie. I have a son who's out in California, went out there a couple months ago, finally, after telling him, just go and bring your camera and make something. You just have to make it. I've been telling him the same thing. And I'm a big fan of the Duplass brothers, and I've read their book, and they have the same theory. You just pick up a camera, you make a movie with your friends. And, I mean, you made the perfect one. It's two people in a house, one location, really. I mean, outside of it a little bit. But it seems like the perfect way to be making movies right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody wants that blockbuster at some point in their life. But I appreciate a movie like yours so much more. I think it's a little bit harder to make what you made.
It is, and you know what the secret to it is? You have to write to your strengths and to your idiosyncratic, bottom of the barrel, odd corners of your brain and your sensibility. Don't try and replicate a Marvel pick.
Right.
You make it truly, truly, truly yours. Do your thing. And, I got really specific, and I also knew not only can we not, afford a full werewolf costume, but it's going to be far more interesting, and let's see how effective we could be in minimalism and making this a sound designer's movie and a composer's movie, which we did.
Well, working in radio, I do a lot with sound, so to hear or to see what you were doing with sound was pretty cool as well. You told the story, like you said, without having the budget for the costumes or the blood or whatever. You told the same story, but with sound, and I love that personally. So
Yeah.
tell me what point did you know this was something? You got into Sundance and then, of course, on Shudder. But where did it all start?
Well, that's a great question. I was in the commercial game. I'm still a commercial director and a gig worker, and I knew that no one was going to give me a better shot than myself at making a movie. Even the process say it best. It's like, make movies, don't take meetings. And it's true. No meeting I've ever had has ever generated $1. It's always when I've self-generated that it's turned into even just interest from people to partner down the road. And so it's a combination of things. I wanted to make a movie. I wanted to make it to my resources. I wanted to terraform it to shooting in my hometown, to housing a few people at my parents' house, to working with buddies. To writing to my strengths, but also, I wrote this script sort of at the beginning of 2018 is when I started the idea started to germinate, and it was sort of the height of the Me Too movement. You had Weinstein and you had even Dustin Hoffman and Kevin Spacey, but by the time I really got angry was Aziz Ansari. Regardless of how that accusation had netted out, there's a comedian who's known to be a good guy, and you read about this sort of gender dynamic, this uncomfortable gender dynamic, for lack of a better euphemism, where he took advantage of this girl on a date, and reading about that was infuriating, and it began a lot of conversations I had with women in my circle, not just fans from College Humor, which is ironic. That's a very male-oriented site, but women in my life, women in general, and a lot of them on Instagram, thanking me for simply signal boosting my frustration at what was happening in the world and why men couldn't, keep their dicks in their pants. And in that infuriation grew an eagerness to explore a more nuanced side of that power trip, which is competition, which is a DNA that we all know and we're all familiar with, man to man, woman to woman, vice versa, and any combination thereof, but specifically when it comes to this man in the face of a woman he feels entitled to the success of. So it helped me to write Angry, to have an engine that I knew I wanted to write a horror movie, from a financial perspective. Maybe I'll make my money back down the road. It's not going to cost that much if I ask buddies to throw in and my producers to trust me. I certainly didn't set out to make a Me Too movie by any means, but I thought, well, if I can wrap this social commentary up in the veneer of the midnight movie that I used to watch as a kid, anything from Tales from the Dark Side to Stephen King's Cat's Eye to John Carpenter's Body Bags, those types of anthology movies, if I could make it feel like that without affording all the production design, maybe we got something different here. And you asked about the first moment when I thought I really had something was honestly when we got to the tech scout and the crew members, these blue collar gaffers, grips. Yeah. I'm saying plural, but there was really one per department. Where they watched me kind of work out each scene and sort of say, this is what's going to happen in this corner and the story is going to be this way, and then to sort of pseudo act out a sequence. They sort of go, oh, wow, this is different. So that was telling for sure.
Yeah, and then you hit Sundance and you had a great reception there, and you're guaranteed, or what is it? You're certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which is fantastic. Yeah. And then cool. Shudder says, yeah, let's do this thing. Now, I see a lot of promotion for Shudder. I don't see a lot of movie promotion, like one. They're not focusing on one movie, but I noticed they were doing it with Scare Me. Like, did they put a lot behind it?
I think they did. I don't think it was much more than they typically do, although we're kind of a special case. I don't think they typically have, at least from my experience, I see a lot of actors that are more unknown and that are chameleonic in that kind of a way. But, Aya Cash and Chris Redd, you don't typically have actors of that caliber from a different kind of echelon doing quote unquote horror movies, right. Or at least in the curation of Shudder films. So I think there was a bit more of the story there. I think they believed in, and again with the social commentary, they probably wanted to lean in a bit more. I don't know. I can't really answer anything beyond that. I think the festival accolade probably kicked them in the ass a bit to go, okay, maybe we could lean in here a bit, which was really cool. But I think they smartly, kind of gave this one a little oomph because of, I guess for lack of a better word, the star power, but also the social message. Is my guess. And I've been noticing just as a Shudder member, they curate their kind of newsletter, and they make it a little more Clubhouse, a little more kind of familial. They'll send you a newsletter or, invite you to the Discord or what have you, and just, focus on, in kind of a more targeted way, advertising to their users.
Yeah, well, it was a good chance for them to pull in some new users as well with this specific movie. Going back to College Humor, did I see a very young Pete Holmes in one of your shorts?
Yeah, he and I did a few of them. We did one where I can't remember
It was a Philip Seymour Hoffman one.
Yeah, we would usually do dueling Philip Seymour Hoffman, mostly just impersonating him from Happiness.
Okay, I love Pete.
Pete Holmes is great. Oh my gosh, yeah, he's fun. We've had some fun times on his podcast, just doing voices for 2 hours and laughing too much.
You have a podcast too. Is that still going?
I put it down for a bit because work kind of picked up, but
Sure.
I'd love to pick it back up again. I have an ongoing list of folks that I'd love to talk to, and God knows it'll be a nice way to pass the time. Maybe in the new year, I don't know.
Thomas Middleditch, I love him too. I got a chance to check out that podcast where you guys just went back and forth with impressions, but and then it seems like the people you were coming up with College Humor are making their way on their own, and now you have your shot here. Working so long as you did and doing commercial work and directing and being in You're the Worst and other TV and movie roles. But now it's Josh Ruben, the writer, director, and star of a pretty hot horror movie right now. Congratulations, man.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. I'm thrilled that, again, it was a bucket list item just to make the thing. So to get this far, to be talking to folks like you, and for the accolades we have gotten, it's really, really incredible. It's a nice way to pass the time, and under the dark cloud of 2020.
A couple more quick questions. I don't want to keep you. Are you busy? Are you good? I know it's early.
No, please take your time.
No, please keep praising me. I love this.
Yeah.
So in the movie, in the movie, you're talking about werewolves. That's part of the story, and you're working on a movie that has werewolves in it. Was this a coincidence?
Well, it's called Werewolves Within, and it was a total coincidence. The producers, Matt Miller and Natalie Metzger, work for a company called Vanishing Angle, who actually just released their werewolf movie previous to ours, called The Wolf of Stowe Hollow, with Robert Forster.
Oh yeah,
great movie. They came to a test screening of Scare Me when it was a 2-hour cut. Were very, very gracious and gave me some wonderful feedback, and sort of, this gig came to them across their desk where they needed a director from Ubisoft, and it's a script part of the Ubisoft Film and Television Women's Film and Television fellowship program they have under Ubisoft. So I thought for sure they would ask a female director aboard. I was fortunate enough to pitch on it and work with Mishna Wolf, who's the writer on the script. But yeah, it's essentially, it turned out to be quite a Knives Out adjacent sort of genre whodunit, which was so fun to do. And Sam Richardson, he plays the lead. It was really, really fun to work with him and have him play the hero. But it was incredible. We shot up in the Hudson Valley once again. I was able to go back to some of my crew that I work with on Scare Me, but also just to go back home and to bring a gig of this this sort of caliber to the economy was really, really wonderful. And hopefully, we wrapped, March 9th. We began production in January, wrapped March 9th, and then we were in lockdown on the 12th. So
wow.
we were able to get in right under the gun, which is just phenomenal.
You mentioned Knives Out, now this movie, and it seems like this could be a trend now, the smarter horror movie, the horror movie that you don't know where it's going to go. And I think comedy is so important in any movie. Even the deepest drama should have an element of comedy in it. And I think it works so well with horror.
I think so. A lot of the criticism, thankfully only a small portion of criticism that we've gotten has to do with, oh man, it's a horror movie though. I wanted to really be scared. It's called Scare Me, but why did it scare me? Well, some of the greatest horror movies that I watched as a kid, I think all of the ones I fell in love with and I'm trying to emulate, at least spiritually, were hysterical or had some kind of inherent humor to them. Everything from, Fright Night and stuff to Evil Dead, Dead by Dawn, to Ghostbusters and Beetlejuice if you want to get brighter. So those are just my types of, favorites.
Well, and then when you're bringing Halloween back and you've got Danny McBride writing the script for it, there's a need for comedy now. I think they want the comedy.
Yeah, I think so. And it's just, again, it's that nice confluence of visceral reactions, the guffaw and the yelp. And to have, if you can balance that well in one movie, good on you. And I hope to keep doing it. It's a fun place to play in for now, anyway.
I hope so too. Do you think we'll ever see, we'll ever get more answers about Fred and Fanny and their fate? Well, we kind of know someone's fate, but I want to know what was happening, who was crazy, who wasn't crazy. Could there be a short in the future, perhaps, or a short story, fan fiction? We could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear other people's interpretations. There's a lot going on. I have my answer for sure. I will say, originally when I wrote this script, and we're in spoiler territory now, but
right.
Originally when I wrote this, there was a light switch moment. There was less of a gray area where Fred just sort of conveniently, and now we're in a real horror movie, because she's in the house with a killer.
Yeah.
But a great producer named Ray Winsome, who works for a company called QC, we'd actually talked to them, asked them if they would be willing to invest in our movie, which they didn't, but he was very generous. He took some time to talk to me. They were first in on Get Out, on investing in Get Out, and later Black Klansman. And Ray had really good advice, which was to make it more of a gray area, to make it more of a blurred line, not make it so convenient that so he's suddenly psycho. We all sort of saw that coming. And what's more interesting is kind of playing from a more realistic place. This guy, and it worked out perfectly. It complemented the film and the plot perfectly. He's barreling towards a bit of a fracture, and then I think what it ends up being is roughhousing. It's taking a game too far, as we've all kind of done.
Yeah.
A game, quote unquote.
There's some great foreshadowing. I mean, the whole knives, when you touch the knives, and the way that you talk to yourself is great foreshadowing as well. And her attitude is perfect foreshadowing. She's very rigid and also very mean for a good portion of the first half, and then she lightens up. Anyway, I could talk forever with you. Josh, Ruben, thank you so much. Now, I never want to make somebody do you don't ask a comedian to tell you a joke, but I would love to get a few impressions. I mean, Jason Bateman is one of my favorite actors, and you nailed that.
That's an easy one to do. Well, because I realized as I was talking, somebody said you kind of remind me of him, and I was trying to find the voice, and then I kind of realized, I think I sound like him, and there's not a whole lot that I have to do, and it's a little bit in the delivery. It's
the pauses, it's the inflections. Yeah, that's so Jason Bateman in every conversation. I love it. And then I don't know. I mean, Aaron Paul is such a unique impression to do, and you have to say, Aaron Paul, you remember from Breaking Bad, and then people go, oh yeah. So do your Aaron Paul if you don't mind.
Oh yeah. Well, after Breaking Bad, I did The Past. Please watch The Past. It's kind of all I, sort of did. Bitch. He's, I love tequila.
And without putting you on the spot, I'll just tell people to go Google or go on YouTube and find, what is it called, Almost 12 Minutes with Josh Ruben.
Oh, yeah, very specific characters. Yeah, there's a lot of real specific ones in there. But hey, if you want to hear my Guillermo del Toro, Mark Ruffalo, and just funny sounds, go for it.
Or the businessman at a lunch. The businessman at a lunch was so good, you had 4 or 5 of those.
Yeah, that's right. It was a bit of a series for a minute, and I'm trying to put them up on TikTok, and like, the 14-year-olds are like, what is that? Give me more,
I mean, when you were doing specific
that
impressions, they were specific, but so good.
Yeah,
I can't wait to get more from you, and now I want more Josh Ruben in my life. So I look forward
thank you, Ray.
Yeah. Well, it was a great conversation. Great to talk to you. Again, it's on Shudder. It's called Scare Me, and I don't know. Maybe it'll be so big that when the theaters open up again, you'll get your big theater debut.
I would love it if we could get it in some rundown black box on Broadway. That would be a total dream, honestly. So maybe we'll blow it out of the water and end up, I don't know, doing some limited run somewhere. But if Cash is listening, hopefully she'll originate that role once again, but do it on the stage.
And if you make it into New England sometimes, please look me up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love it. It's probably gorgeous up there right now.
Oh, it's pouring right now, and all the leaves are coming down, and Mother Nature chooses this time to drop all the leaves in my yard. So the weekend is kind of blown. Are you in LA? You're on West Coast. Is it LA?
Yeah. Yes, it's gorgeous now, but we're headed back to the Hudson Valley this Friday. We're going to don the double mask, get on the plane, and see the family. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, good. Oh, I drove cross country to bring my son to LA, and once we hit like 30 miles outside of LA, the mountains disappeared. And the smoke from the wildfires took over everything. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy. Luckily now it's changed up a bit. You can see the San Bernardino Mountains from my place now, but for a minute, it was totally enshrouded. And I'm glad it's getting better. But there was a week where it felt like you're walking around in a casino, like the secondhand smoke was headache inducing, and I'm glad it's eased up a bit.
Yeah.
The firefighters out here have done an incredible job.
Josh Ruben, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Ray. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You got it.